Hi there, Frank here from Remek Trading Systems, and what we're looking at is an edited video here, what's going to become an edited video of the history or the saga of treasuries, our treasuries analysis and trades of August and September. I think August 3rd to September 29th. I think this has tremendous educational value as our premium membership can attest to it, and no doubt some of the members may have made some good fortunes here over the past 2 months. All they had to do is just follow us on this journey, and this is what we do day in and day out. Now, I also want to say one more thing. We have software products, powerful software products, namely the standalones, which can tremendously help you in executing these trades. So what in this video we're going to be looking at are trade ideas, setups, and opportunities. How you take advantage of those opportunities, that's where our software can help you with automation and the desired level of automation depending on the situation, on your personality, on your particular circumstances, even the time of day. So more about that maybe next time, but right now I'm just going to save this, produce it, upload it to YouTube, and take it away and learn from it and see how we do what we do. Thank you very much, and mindful trading. And treasuries is interesting because we have started the move, the expected move to the downside. Now I'm going to ignore this. I mean, in other words, I'm not going to look at this as a bull flag on the daily, because what I think is that the weekly time frame, the bearish setup might take control anytime. Also, if you look at the 4-hour time frame, what we see here is a potential ante. An ante is an abrupt ending of a trend, which usually ends up in a measured move, something like this. So we are building a little flag here, might abruptly break down and give us a 1R. So I'm not trading to this to the long side. I'd rather trade this to the short side if this triggers around between 41 and 42. And let's see what else. The treasuries, I'm ignoring long trades, long setups, because of the larger context in the economy and also because of the, technically speaking, the more bearish than bullish structure here on the weekly, and we have a doji on the weekly, so this is a very low volatility, sideways, choppy action I'm not interested in trading. Then we have a couple of treasuries which are or seem to be in the process of building a bear flag on the 4-hour time frame. I'm interested in shorting this bear flag if we do break down. Remember, we've been ignoring the long trades on the daily. Why? Because we have a bear flag on the weekly chart, and also because interest rates are going up, which creates an environment in which the treasury bills price, actually, which is what we're trading here in the form of a futures contract, are expected to go down. So I'm interested in shorting the treasuries, both the ZB and the ZN, only if we get triggered, okay? So there is a difference. This is, again, for new users. There's a difference, an important difference between a setup and a trigger. A setup is just this. This is a setup. It's an opportunity or a potential. We're only interested in pursuing this potential if we get triggered into the trade. And if you actually take the trade, that depends on your trading plan and your risk management rules. What are the situations where you may have a fantastic trigger and you decide not to take the trade? Well, maybe I don't know, I just broke a leg, or I have a headache, or I am in 5 other trades and I have no more money on the account for the 6th trade. So there are many, many reasons. Or maybe I can be at the machine in the next couple of hours. So there's many reasons why you may skip the trade. That's up to you. We don't recommend what to do and what not to do. You should have a plan based on your own individual circumstances. what we're doing as part of this service is to help you see the markets the way we see it, because I think and we are convinced that the way we see the markets is a profitable way of seeing the markets. That's all. Hi there, Frank here for premium members for the trading day of August the 9th, 2022, a Tuesday. And on to treasuries. Not much happened. We are still waiting for this bear flag to do anything for us here. Hasn't broken down. So it's just like yesterday, no change, and we're waiting for a short trigger here. And let's move on to treasuries. Nothing much happening on gold and silver. Treasuries, again, contradicting and strange situation, but I'm still looking for short based on the weekly time frame. I'm not in a rush, and if we get triggered on the 4-hour chart, which looks messy, but look at this green candle, red candle. So it's just price rejection up here. If we get triggered here, then I'm interested in a short trade. All right, let's move on to treasuries, on which the shorts have triggered. This is also a trade, perhaps because of the slow summer action. It took maybe 10 days to really get going here, but now we are short. And ZN just triggered, maybe, here we go, a few minutes ago actually. Look at this beautiful bear flag on the weekly time frame. Let's see what else is there. I should mention that, so one thing about trading is that we don't really pick the time frame. The market picks the time frame for setups, and the only thing we can decide is if we trade it or not. So here I am pointing out that this is a bear flag on the weekly time frame. It's a very large time frame, but probably this will break down. And if you are interested in trading this very large time frame setup, then one way of trading it on smaller time frames is to just look for bear flags on whichever time frame you're trading. And you will know that by taking these shorts, you are joining the weekly crowd, the weekly time frame for the short. So short setup on weekly treasuries. Hi there, Frank here for premium members for the trading day of August the 19th, 2022, a Friday. Okay, so treasuries is next. Not much happening, except that the weekly structure, I think, is in control. This is a very large time frame for us, so we'll see if we can do anything with it. In the meantime, we're busy pursuing other stuff anyway. All right, let's move on to treasuries is the next asset class. And so this is the other market where it's just a bear flag on the weekly, nothing special. The smaller time frame patterns, including this not too easy to define something on the daily, just a slide down. This is what the bear flag, the complex bear flag of the weekly looks like on a smaller time frame. Nothing to worry about. This is an excellent pattern. You can also do this with ETFs, and you can think in weeks out, because this looks a wonderful trade on treasuries, both either the 5, 10, or 30-year, whichever you want to trade. I'm just showing you the 10-year now, the ZN. It's a little smaller contract than the ZB, but the volatility conditions are similar. And continuing with some other markets, not much happening on treasuries. We noted there's a weekly bear flag here, a weekly bear flag. There's nothing to do yet because it hasn't triggered. I'm expecting a 135 trigger area here. And if that triggers and we're interested in a short, probably with some kind of ETFs, we'll see how it goes. But let's get there first. It's just a slide and it's difficult to find a entry point on the futures, but ETF is another possibility. Hi there, Frank here for premium members for the trading day of August the 24th, 2022, a Wednesday. On treasuries, the weekly bear flags are taking control. We talked about this yesterday. And although we haven't triggered yet here exactly around 135, the 4-hour time frame bear flag, you can already look at this as being triggered right now. So if you want to find this place here on the 4-hour chart and use this area as a short into the weekly structure, even with a ETF, as we mentioned yesterday. I think that's a good shorting opportunity here. Same on the ZN as well. Okay, also I just wanted to note all timestamps on the charts are Atlantic time. I'm in New Brunswick right now, so it's all Atlantic time, 1 hour ahead of Eastern time. Okay, and let's see. Yes, treasuries. Treasuries, remember, the weekly bear flags are triggering. And actually, if you traded the 4-hour chart, ZB, then you can call this a 1R, beautiful 1R. This is how we, remember, we said how you can participate on a smaller chart. This is what we do all the time. Identify the move on the higher time frame, and then take little slices out of this bigger move on our smaller chart, which we have the money to participate on. And ZN also shows the same picture as always. All right, let's see what else is there. Of course, treasuries is something we need to talk about, especially after Friday's catalyst, news catalyst. So here we go. We are now triggered or triggering on the weekly time frame, and we have all reason or indication, macroeconomic factors and price action itself from our charts too, that this market is poised to go to the downside. Great opportunity for the coming days, weeks, or perhaps months, because interest rates are likely to stay high. ZN, as always, let's have a look. I'm not expecting anything different. You see, beautiful bear flag here on the 4-hour chart, and I'm sure that we're going to get a short signal here, but even before the market opens and even before we get the short signal, I would treat the break of this little bottom tail as an excellent trigger area into a short trade, just for 1 hour for now. All right, let's continue with treasuries. Treasuries look pretty obvious. The shorts are in progress on whichever time frame you trade. Either the daily looks good for a short, and you see, look at the weekly chart. We now have the trigger, the algorithmic trigger, and we talked about the short and the trigger area even before the algorithmic calculation arrived. And one of the best setups for tomorrow, actually, or for the next few days, but with an expected trigger imminently, is treasuries. Look at this 4-hour setup on the ZB. Excellent shorting opportunity. The daily is just about to break here, and the weekly is, I think, what's driving this trade also. The weekly time frame is triggering as well. Let's have a look at the ZN, because that's also set up nicely to the short side. Here we go. Actually, well, depending on where and how and which bear flag you took, as you can see, you could have hit already the 1R. If not, then if you didn't take that short, no problem, because you can treat this as a breakout trade. Here we go. And if that triggers, I think it's still good for another short. Look at the target area around 114 on the daily time frame. All right, let's move on to treasuries, on which you could be and you should be probably short on ZB. Look at this, a good short in progress. We talked enough about this trade, so there's no need to repeat, and ZN is also in the middle of a short trade. Here we go, and remember, beautiful breakout here. Could be 1R, depending on exactly where you entered. And remember, ZN is heading, in most likelihood, to 114, which is the previous pivot. Look at the weekly chart, nicely breaking down as well. All right, and now let's look at treasuries, on which we said that, well, we have more than 1R on the 4-hour time frame, but we also said that actually the weekly is in control, and it might make sense to think more long-term here in treasuries and try to pursue the weekly structure. Let's look at some treasuries. Not much has happened, so we're just coming back from the long weekend, obviously, so we couldn't expect a lot of price action here in the limited opening hours of the futures market on the weekend. But here is a complex bear flag, which we're ready to short if it triggers. Let me just draw this up here quickly so it would look something like this. Here we go, something like this roughly. So that's good, a good looking 1R potential right there. And similar on the ZN as always. Just have a look at the ZN and we have a clearly defined previous pivot as we often identify, and here is the potential journey down to test that level. Treasuries didn't do much yesterday, but I think that was just like people returning from the holiday. It really started moving today, but the structure and the action is exactly what we expected and what we forecasted. Again, just like with the indexes, the weekly structure is actually in control, or so it seems. We never know, of course, it as a fact. It's just so it seems from the structure and from price action. And the same situation here, just about a 0.7, 0.8 R trade right now. So tighten stop or remove profits is perfectly fine. At ZN, there's a little difference, the 1R on the 4-hour, but we have a little room to go down to test this pivot, which I think will be tested. So 114 is not a bad target area for a potential runner on ZN. Thank you for premium members for the trading day of September the 12th, 2022, a Monday. We also have some shorts in progress on treasuries. These markets move very slowly, but look at this. I think this will resolve itself to the downside from this structure. And let's see if we can get a 1R out of this. We also have a pretty good looking weekly structure here. So if you're aiming for a bigger bite, then you may want to stay in the trade down to 125-ish area, which would be the 1R on the weekly. Treasuries have triggered, look at this. This was from yesterday. So if you're short here, I think this is still a good trade. We can expect further shorts based on the weekly chart. We talked about this, and I think this will go on for weeks and weeks out and perhaps a few more months if we look at the interest rate situation in the economy. And also, let's look at treasuries, which are moving very slowly. But please remember, first of all, on the daily, this is a slide along the Keltner. So that's a powerful pattern that we know already. We might get a chance to join. This is also, by the way, almost a 1R here on the 4-hour chart. But I think there's more shorts coming because more rate hikes are possible, and even tomorrow's 8:30 news might move the treasury market as well. And ultimately, we're looking for a 125 target on the weekly. All right, let's continue with treasuries, on which the 1R, or at least the short, is in progress. This is a very slow-moving market. And if you're not short yet, then here's the next potential setup with a pretty good entry or trigger area defined here by this bottom tail. So if you want to short the treasuries down to, remember, the weekly target, down to 125, then this could be a good entry area into a potentially pretty good trade. And the small chart is already seemed to be breaking down after hours. Continuing with treasuries, the short setup is still valid, hasn't triggered yet. You could be short already based on previous trades, trailing it down to 125 as we discussed in the past couple of days. Or if not, then you can treat this new trigger area as an entry into this potentially good trade on the weekly chart. All right, and what else? Let's see. Of course, we are bearish on treasury, so we continue to watch for potential shorts. And if you're not short here, out of this structure, this bear flag about 2 days ago, I think this is still a good entry. You haven't missed this trade yet. And remember, the ultimate target for now is 125 on the weekly chart. So this happens too. And let's move on. There's some further work for us here waiting for us on treasuries. Now, it's not an easy job. Remember, ultimate target 125. Let's keep that in mind. But this is a very strong and very good, excellent example of a slide along the Keltner with everything that goes with it, the beauty of this pattern, the potential profit potential in this move is always there if you're in it. But if you're not in it, it's difficult to enter because it can end violently because it's a one-sided market and there's no pullbacks for us that would guide us for entry points. That's about it, but I'm expecting that 125 will be hit sooner or later. I'm expecting further downside on this market, the treasuries, of course, for reasons that we discussed many times before. Okay, now continuing with ZB, another very good analysis last night. Look at what happened today. These are the candles today in the open session, in the daily session. And here's the intraday chart action, 15-minute chart. So on the daily, we didn't really get the pullback, but we had this little pullback here on the 4-hour chart. So if you've been watching this market, then probably you saw this. I was not on top of it, but I'm eyeing the 125 longer term. All right, moving on to treasuries. Nothing really new to report. We have a little bear flag here if you'd like to consider joining this long slide here on the daily. Just know that, please, the weekly is a little bit, it has retested the previous low, so this could be poised for a little consolidation here that would show us a little move to the middle on the daily chart. So careful on treasuries, but we are long term, we are very bearish on treasuries. Rates were just hiked today, actually, so I'm talking on Wednesday, so the FOMC rate hike, everybody's aware of that. Hi there, Frank here for premium members for the trading day of September 23, 2022, a Friday. Let's start with a little review quickly with the Market Scanner Pro that we're using. And I just want to run through the columns. There's some new users, and I'd like to make sure everybody understands what we're doing here. So we are following these instruments. These columns are very, very important. They convey important information for us. This column, this whole chart, you can also see it on the premium page. And if you are a user of one of our advanced software products, then you have this also. So let's see how this works. Of course, the instrument's name, and then the day simply shows us how many days are left from the current contract. So if you're planning a trade on the NG, you know that in 3 days there will be a rollover, which is important and crucial to know as we plan the trade. Second column, or the third column in here, is the triple R indicator. It's a very important tool for us, and whenever it has an extreme value measured in standard deviation, it will light up in green or red. Let's use the Canadian dollar example just to demonstrate the situation here. So this is more than 2 standard deviation, either to the upside or downside, will be highlighted here for us. And what does this mean? This means that there was on the daily time frame for me, there was an extremely unusual move for the Canadian dollar on this market on the close of yesterday. If you look at the chart, you'll see that that's in fact the case. We had a pretty large move outside the Keltner, and the methodology that we follow is based on 3 events. First is the big move. That's the momentum move. After that, we will expect a pullback. That's event number 2. And event number 3 is the potential trigger on which we will consider a trade. 1, 2, 3. The triple R indicator, and the information is here, is the first event. So we don't act on it, but we keep it in mind that this is a market that we have to watch. What's the next column? The setup is basically event number 2. That's the pullback phase. The setup is when an instrument has already had the momentum move, the initial move. Now it's in the pullback phase. Let's take an example. For example, there is a bear flag on the 6E. Short or bear flag, pretty much the same thing, and I'm using it on the 4-hour chart. So for my bear flag will be here in the corner on the 240-minute chart. And in fact, it is here. This is a complex bear flag. So that's step number 2. And eventually, if and when this actually gets triggered, then triggered meaning that price breaks out from this pullback channel and starts to move down, that's when the signal or trigger, signal and trigger is the same thing, signal or trigger will be highlighted here. Right now, there's no situation in the signal stage, but we have quite a few flags here, long or short, bull flags or bear flags, as you can see. So this helps us tremendously as we plan our trades. 1, 2, 3 are the simple steps, and maybe next time we'll review the other 3, but this is just a little introduction of how these columns help us tremendously and help us monitor as many markets as we want. But for practical purposes, I ended up following these, which I have on my list. If you're interested in any other markets, just simply put them on your list, and this will be all analyzed for you automatically. And let's look at treasuries, on which we mentioned this bear flag here yesterday, and today we hit 1R, so that's just another 1R in our book. Beautiful. Look at this. I'm still eyeing 125, and the ZN, let's look at the 5-year too. Actually, the 10-year, sorry, the 10-year, here we go. The ZN broke down beautifully as well. Moving on to treasuries. Treasuries continue to melt down. Not an easy market to trade. We had a 1R here, but if you were on this next one, this next bear flag, then that could have yielded another 1R for you. It's rather extended, and if you notice on the weekly, we're very close to 125, which is our ultimate target. Treasuries, we have hit the 125. You can go back to videos. That was the initial target, the 1R target on the weekly, and we are out of this trade. Beautiful.